Shaken.
What is going on, guys? Cloud Gaming bringing you another Dark Souls 3 video. In this video we're going to talk about tips for beginners. For those beginners out there, just bought the game, so excited. Hell yes, Dark Souls 3, let's get into it. You start playing, get that first boss, die 8 times. Anticlimactic. You get in there and you're just like, hell yeah, I'm going to tear this game up and get wrecked. To that I say welcome to Dark Souls 3. But it doesn't have to be that way. So in this video, we're going to try to keep you from getting completely wrecked. You're still going to get wrecked. This is Dark Souls. But we're gonna try to reduce the amount of rage you get from this game. So, first thing we need to talk about, as far as tips go, is classes. Your build. Your build, in my opinion, is everything. If you don't know what you're doing with your build, if you do not have a goal in mind in this game, you're going to end up making some shitty ass character that has stats all over the place. And yeah, it may work, and a good player may be able to get all the way through the game. But we're talking about people who do not play Dark Souls all the time, or maybe you do and you're struggling. So you're not like pro and you can't run through the game with like one hit worth of vitality and no equip load and running around with no armor. So with that said, we need to talk about classes. First thing you need to do, decide what kind of player you are. Are you the kind of person who likes short weapons that attack fast and you have to be real close? Or do you like being the melee character with a little bit longer distance of a weapon? And honestly, you're not going to know until you start playing the game what weapons you like, because Dark Souls, usually there's certain weapons that have movesets that are just godlike. But you need to decide what kind of player you are in the beginning. Do you want to be a melee character, or do you want to be a magic character, or do you want to be a melee magic character? So decide that first. That would be my first tip. And in that tip, or along with that tip I should say, I'm going to make a video about this and I'll link it in the description, but the best beginning class, in my personal opinion, the one I have the most success with, is definitely a strength faith build, because it really doesn't take much to put into faith. And I'm not talking about all out faith build, I'm talking about just somewhat faith build, strength melee character with some faith so that you have some healing. That's my personal favorite starting class on these games. And then I usually try to go a little bit harder after I've run through the game. So the best characters for that to start with, I would say, would be the Herald and the Cleric. And we'll get into stats and what you should go up on and what's important. But that's what I would start with if you want to do a strength faith build. Before we get into tip number 2, I just want to say, anybody who's watching this and saying, I already know all the stuff you're talking about, skip to the very last tip to learn combat related stuff. Everything up to then is going to be kind of like understanding the basics. The combat stuff, I'm going to get into a little bit more depth on how to understand and how to play the game a little bit more efficiently from a combat perspective. So, tip number 2, let's get into this. Equipment. Equipment is so important in this game. You cannot have it enough. I cannot say this, I cannot stress this enough, but having equipment that you understand is so important. And I will prove to you what I mean. Let's say we're fighting. Let's say I'm fighting a boss or something. I can either roll dodge or I can use a special on this. This is the weapon skill. This is the weapon skill. And the weapon skill is, if you look here, if you go to the weapon in this part of your inventory and you press square to show item info, down at the bottom will say skill. Okay, this is why I love Dark Souls 3. They finally added what I would call weapon skills. Now, not only do you need to understand how your weapon attacks, like this would not be a good group enemy type weapon. Every weapon attacks differently. You seen how the knife attacks? Look at these large sweeps that this makes. This is perfect for hitting more than one enemy. It's not ideal, because this weapon is even more ideal for hitting multiple enemies. Right here, see that large sweep? So much better. And not only that, but the weapon art or the skill weapon skill is even better for hitting multiple enemies. So understanding your weapon and how it attacks, understanding the heavy attack, everything, knowing your weapon is so important, because when you get in certain situations, you need certain weapons to get out of them, and I found that to be really true. As well as equipment, you should look at your weight ratio. I'm almost at 100%. I'm way past overload. 70 is when you start to fat roll, and this is a fat roll. When you start to see that, if you put something new on, that means you have exceeded the 70% mark, and now you are fat rolling and you're too heavy. If I take this sword off, I go back to this. You want to, in my opinion, some people can play the game with fat roll, but this needs to be where you're at right here with this quick roll. And like I said, that's under 70%. If you get under at 30 or under, you roll even faster. And it's not really noticeable. It's just you roll farther, not really faster. You just roll farther. Alright, so that's a pretty big thing to keep in mind. But weapons, I mean, I can't stress that enough. Understand your weapons. Understand how they attack. Otherwise, I mean, you're just going to run into a situation and you're not going to know what you're doing. Stat balancing is going to be the third tip. Let's go ahead and get in this. I'm trying not to make this video too long, but there's so much included in this game, and anybody who really knows Dark Souls could tell you that. So when you level up, you have the choice to choose between all these stats, and to the new player, this looks very intimidating because you don't understand what it is. If you simply, at the bottom, you'll see it says help. If you press that button and you just ask for explanation, you can run through this and it's going to tell you what everything is. See, strength, it's an attribute required to wield powerful and heavy weapons. Also governs resistance to fire and improves attack strength. So at the right hand side, when you actually do get a point and you go up, I wish I had enough to go up. When you actually do have enough to go up, when you put a point on here, it'll actually show you over here to the right how much is going to raise your attack power with each weapon, and the other stats it affects, which is important. So if you're a strength build, you need to make sure, I mean, you're gonna need vitality, because usually strength builds are gonna run pretty heavy weapons and usually heavy armor, unless you want to sacrifice that. So you're gonna want to have a lot of strength, a lot of vitality, and vigor is always good. You're not gonna need stuff like attunement or intelligence or faith, and understanding that aspect of it is important. That's why this help menu is good. It tells you what you need to know to get your stats. You need them to play your character. And as far as stats go, what's very important is hitting your min stats. This one takes no dexterity. It only has a under their attribute requirement at the middle of the bottom of the screen says attribute requirement. As long as you hit that requirement, it's good. The scaling, it says A above that with the strength icon. That tells you how much your strength affects the damage of the weapon. So for instance, the more strength I have on my character, the higher the plus is. If you look at my physical damage, it says the weapon does a base of 114 plus 53. So A is pretty high, S is the highest. So as I go up in strength, that plus 53 will also go up, which will make the overall damage of the weapon go up, and it'll go up more or less depending on the attribute scaling, or the attribute bonus as the game calls it. So stats and stat balancing for the type of character you want is important. Alright, so now we're on to the fourth tip. The fourth tip is going to be about one of the first things you should do when you start this game. And honestly, it's what I do with every single character. First thing I do is I go get this Estus shard. I think this is a glitch I don't understand. It doesn't always take the fog off, so you just run up and down into the fog. There you go, it disappears. Now I don't know if they're going to patch this or what, but I won't show you all the attempts on this. Alright, so we finally made it. Alright, so the reason this is in this video and not its own separate video is because this is really going to get all the beginners on a great foot. This is going to get you where you need to be when you start this game, because one of the hardest things to do in this game is to level up, and that Estus shard is that's the main thing you want up here. Come up here to get that Estus shard, and hit this wall, it's illusionary, run straight over here, and there's a chest. And this chest has a silver covenant serpent ring in it. And also these chests in the game, make sure you hit them, because if you don't, some of them will be mimics and you will automatically die from them. So the covenant silver serpent ring, what does that do? Well, it increases souls you get for every single enemy. That's why this is important for beginners. You will get more souls per kill, hence you will level up faster. And for a beginner, that is absolutely great. For anybody, not even just a beginner. Even for those people who are just playing this game for the 8th time through, I will always get that every single time. Plus the Estus Flask shards, it gives you an extra Estus Flask. And you can choose to change that from Estin or your Ashen Estus Flask or normal Estus Flask. God, I just said Estus Flask so many times I'm getting tongue-tied. So I will explain to you as soon as okay, so you go to reinforce. Alright, and now he just increased it, so you can go to a lot and you can change how many you want. So the blue one is going to be what I would consider magic. That's gives you magic back. And that's good for like the faith build, because you can actually get 2 heals out of one of those uses, which is better and gives more heals than if you had Estus Flask. So just think about that. If you're a faith build, you get 2 heals per Ashen Estus Flask versus 1 heal per Estus Flask. Do the math and you'll quickly see that if you're a faith build and you have a heal, it's almost better to use the Ashen Estus Flask. Depending on your health and depending on the spell you have, obviously, but in the beginning, yeah. So that's the 4th tip. Quick, easy, couple items you can get in no time. It really doesn't take long. Alright, so the 5th and the final tip, probably the most crucial. Once you have everything I just explained, once you have it all down, this is the most important thing that you need to work on combat wise, because at the end of the day, a good player in Dark Souls really comes down to how they handle their combat. So what I want you to notice about this enemy is, you see what side his weapon rests on? You see that side? When you're fighting, you want to always move into the side that his weapon's on. It's kind of not what you would expect when you first play this game, because you're thinking, oh, you don't want to be near the weapon. But you see how he sideswipes? Now I'll give you an example. Okay, so I don't want him to do that. Let's get a sideswipe here. There we go. Come on. If you move into him and around him on the side with his weapon, he's not gonna hit you. If you run away, if you're not on him, see, if you move into and around him, he's good. But watch this. If you stay out here, he didn't swing side. If you stay out here and you move that way, he's gonna hit you. So keep that in mind. When you're fighting, you want to be close. If you're melee, the closer you are to the enemy, to most enemies, the better. Now there are a few enemies you don't want to get close to, and you'll figure that out as you play. But for the most part, whatever side the enemy's on, just strafe him like that. Strafe him, put your block up. I would recommend running a shield as a beginner. Put your block up and get used to that movement. And once you get used to it, you can just roll right past. Or roll into him, apparently. And then it's easy to get behind him whenever that happens. And the rolling keeps knocking him out. I'm trying to show you. Yeah, it's not working. So move into him. Now watch, if I move this way when he sideswipes, if I move the other way, his swipe will hit me still. See? His swipe will hit me every time. So move into the weapon. Move into the side with the weapon. And I think that's a really important thing to learn. And that's something I've always, when I try to get my friends to play this game, I've always told them is to stay close and move into the weapon. Because most people want to move away. You know, they're going to move down this side. But if you move into the weapon, he's not going to mess with you. And see, you can put your block up, come around, and then easy backstab. Easy backstab. So move into the side with the weapon. That is the biggest combat tip I can give you. move into it. Because if I'm swinging, look at how high. Watch this first swing on my character. Look how high it is on the right side, and look how low it is on the left side. You think if you roll on to my left side, you think that my swipe isn't going to hit you? But what if you roll to my right side? You're going to roll right under my swipe, and you're going to get right behind me, and you're going to backstab me. Same thing works with all the enemies. Roll into the side with their weapon. I cannot stress that enough. That is the most important thing you can do. Anyway, that was the 5 beginner tips. Maybe they were helpful. Maybe they weren't. I hope they were, but I don't know. I could have just rambled on forever. But I hope they were helpful. If they were, give me a comment. You know, hey Cloud, you're doing a great job, and I will greatly appreciate it. Or hey Cloud, you are doing absolutely shitty, and I will take that into consideration and figure out what I can do to bring helpful content. Good, helpful, quality content for anybody who needs help on certain games. If there's any videos you want me to make, any kind of helpful hints, tips, anything, I will make it. Just put in the comments below, and I'll figure it out if I don't know it, and I will make a video about it, and you can expect it to be uploaded. I promise you that. I plan on making a cleric build, or not really a cleric, a strength faith build, which is what this one is. This is going to be that character. I plan on making a video on him when I get him leveled up some more, which hopefully will be in the next couple of days. I'll put a link down in the description when it does get done, so that you can follow over to that and see my build, how I have the stats laid out, and the weapon of choice, which is obviously going to be this weapon. This weapon is beast, and you know, from there, if I need to make a location or a kind of like a where to find this weapon video, I can make that. But we'll talk all about that in the strength faith build. So, as always, guys, more content to come. Like, comment, subscribe. It really helps out the channel. So.